All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of What's What BR. We have two guests with us today from McMains Children's Development Center. We have Ann and Lindy. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. It's to date ourselves, it's Monday, and we've got seems like the first bit of hot weather that's forming. We're trying to get used to that again. So,
Might skip from there to summer, no spring.
yeah, it's interesting. I'd mentioned we had the superintendent from EBR on. There was somebody. He's like, "Oh, I'm looking forward to the heat." And I'm like, "I'll call you in August. I'll let you know. You know how that works."
Gosh, yeah.
So, and tell us a little bit. Let's go each person. And for anybody who doesn't know, who are you? What do you do? And why don't you give us the short version for the McMains Children's Development Center?
Well, I am the executive director there. I've been with McMains Children's Developmental Center 33 years and started as a social worker there. And then over the last 4 years became executive director. And so we are a nonprofit pediatric clinic that we treat children birth to 18 who have any kind of developmental delays or disabilities. So we provide physical, occupational, speech and language, and educational therapy to help them with that, whatever disability there may be. So it can be autism, cerebral palsy, learning disabilities, ADHD, or just developmental delays. We see all kids, accept all insurances, accept all Medicaid, so the wide gamut.
Here we go. Sounds like there's a lot going on.
We do, and lots of family programs too.
Awesome. Well, we'll come to that. So, Lindy, tell us what you do over there.
Yeah, I am the director of development as a nonprofit. We do, over 50% of our budget comes from donors and foundations. So that is what I focus on, donor engagement, making sure that we are raising the funds we need to do the work that the therapists and staff are doing here. So yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. And in disclosure, we pulled you into the show literally last minute. So
Yes.
anybody, you had no prep time for this. We pulled you from one side of the camera to the other. So because somebody else wouldn't join in, we'll leave them anonymous. So yeah. And tell me what in at the core, 33 years, that is, there's got to be some meaning there. People don't sit, at someplace they don't like for 33 years.
You're absolutely right. I love the center. Have pretty much started here right out of grad school. And it has always been a wonderful place to me because one, I could bring my background in special education and social work. So I was able to bring that together to be able to be a social worker here for many, many years. But it is a wonderful, it's just a family type business. We bring together our therapists, our funding, our development department that works on the funding, our admin side, our billing side. Everybody comes together and really rolls up their sleeves and just works together. Very passionate about the families that we treat and the children. And just could not ask for a better place. So it's very much a part of me.
That sounds like it, 33 years. Lindy, you've been what, 31, right?
Yes. I actually started about 2 weeks before we shut down with the coronavirus. So my first year here was kind of a baptism by virus, I guess. Trying to navigate a new job with this organization during that. But
and it just moved back here.
Yeah, I'm just recently relocated back to Baton Rouge after being gone for 10 years. And so what I've only been here for a year, but Ann's very much right. Like it's definitely all hands on deck, which is a really nice place to be when you are doing something for a community, to have a community feel within inside the building, to know that everyone who shows up every single day is doing everything they can to, put the mission of the center first in everything that we do.
Well, you said 1 year. I think the rule they're letting everybody is if you did a COVID year, it counts like dog years, but like 10. So you get 10 years.
Feels like it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's been a year.
Especially I can imagine in that, in the fundraising realm, right now, that's
Yeah,
That's hard enough work as it is, right? Just to
yeah,
begin with.
fundraising during a pandemic that is affecting people differently has definitely been a challenge because our donors are important to us and we want to respect our donors, and they're going through everything that we're going through. No one's immune to what's been going on, and so finding ways to navigate that has been a learn. I mean, not just for us, for all nonprofits. How do you navigate this new world of fundraising when there is so much uncertainty in people's health and pocketbooks and jobs, and there's a lot of insecurity happening. And so we want to make sure that our center is secure while also respecting the fact that our donors might have some insecurities of their own.
Yeah, no, I think I used to not, I say it, and, it used to be, not only, but the majority was if you needed to raise money, you'd went and put a golf tournament on, or you went and ran a 5K,
Right.
and and a lot of people, donate, they give, and that's extremely important. But also a lot of that, I think, is, I don't want to say not by any means disguised, but it's like you might have a company that says, hey, we'll donate, to this group because you've got a 4-man golf tournament. Y'all go to the golf tournament and y'all try to draw up some business while you're there. It's wrapped. There's some business. Everybody's, there's some people that's true, just philanthropic, giving. And then and hey, we'll take it all, right?
Absolutely.
Whatever it helps. But now we've lost, some of those abilities. I think we're getting them back. I think, literally it was not even a month ago, people were still saying, when I was talking to them on the show, they'd be like, I don't know when it's going to be. Now they're like, well, we're planning for this. Like things are moving again. And so I think that's going to be good, but it's hard. But I think it's also, we're getting through it. As my grandmother always told me, this too shall pass. And
I love that.
but we've learned, right? We've all learned, like there are other ways. We're on Zoom. We're talking on Zoom right now. I've done Zoom for 5 years, and it used to be I could never talk to anybody in Baton Rouge on Zoom. It was always people overseas, out of other business things. Now it's nothing to jump on a Zoom call, to be able to have that interaction, to be able to find ways to, hey, we can raise money online. There's different ways that we can do this. I can reach further people. I think some people got really mad, but I'm like, there are some good things that have come out of this, I think, at the end of the day.
For the center, one of the things that we were able to do was implement telehealth, which was never something that we did before. So, you don't want to talk about silver linings with something that's so terrible, but you do learn lessons as you kind of go through it. And the ability of our therapists to very quickly, and staff to very quickly go from being 100% in person to telehealth. We reopened the center in May 16th. And we still have some clients who, just for their own comfort and safety, prefer to remain in telehealth. So that's been something that we've been able to do throughout this time period, which has been really good for everyone.
I think that's a testament to, and people like you, these directors, these leaders that are pointing things out, but then also to take all the way down to that, lower, grass boots on the ground working. If you would have said, if you would have gone 2 years or not gone through a pandemic and said, hey, we're going to roll out telehealth, it would have been this, all right, let's get a committee together. Let's find the people that we need to do. Let's research the vendor. Let's put it together. We can do it for 2022 or 2023. It turns into one of those bigger things, but organizations have just learned, like, no, we're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, the turnaround time on that, we wrote the policy, Kim, our clinical and operations director, and myself within 2 weeks, so that it was ready to move that quickly, and had sent people home, which was pretty exciting. We had some equipment. We were in a better place at that point to be able to get people set up at their houses, which for us was huge, to be able to make those, to be able to get remote PC and get those things set up on computers and with the people to be able to do what we all needed to do. And you're right. If several years ago, we've talked off and on about it, like, how would that be? Could we do it? And obviously with kids, in person, one-on-one is much better. but it still allowed being able to give something and to work with them on being able to get their therapy, from what they needed.
And give them a sense of consistency in a
True.
world that's very not consistent right now. A lot of these kids, therapy is just part of their routine, the way that anything else would be. So to lose that could have been for a lot of families very disruptive. And so to be able to bring therapy back during the shutdown was important, I think, not just for the staff, but for the kids and the families that we service.
I was going to say, I would think with kids, in this therapy, the child's going to therapy, and I think we all know that, but the child may not necessarily connect the dots that they're going to therapy. They just know that they've got this friend, that they go to Mr.'s, so-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, and then all of a sudden that stops. It's like, why? What happened? And then kids are wondering, where things are, or, why did this happen? So to be able to be that quick and move, I think says a lot, like I said, from a leadership standpoint, but then also the people, boots on the ground, that are going, okay, we'll figure it out.
And
how
you
do we
can
do
only
this?
lead if people will walk with you to get it done. So, that really does make a big difference when people are looking and figuring out, we can do this, and putting in, because, it took some time for the therapist getting activities, and we had figuring out online resources and making sure that we had the things in place that made good quality therapy.
Yeah. I told somebody the other day, we jumped on Zoom and they were trying to share their screen or turn their video camera on. I was like, look, you've had a year of this. You should know this by now already. You don't get a pass. And, last March and April was okay to explain. I was like, but no, man, we're a year in. You should know all of this. But what I think it's done from it shows. I don't want to by any means, kind of separate, the strong and the weak, businesses, but there is a difference. And I believe it's the people, it's the leaders at the top giving the people, the boots on the ground, the ability just to go figure it out. To say we need, hey, we're going to go write the policy, but the policy doesn't provide the therapy. The policy doesn't, do the work. It doesn't actually make it. You've said, we're going to make a decision. We're going to stay open. This is how we're going to do it. Let me dot the I's, cross the T's. Let's put, as I said, the policy is the sandbox. This is the parameters in which you're going to operate in. I don't know how you're going to do it, but go do it and come back and let me know how that works out for you. So with that, what is some of the, you've got some current programming that they've been able to do over, remote, and then you've got some new things coming. Is that right? Or I don't know if I want to say new, but just the way that it's kind of being done.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our things have gone back to in person. Many of our families are comfortable coming back into the clinic. And so as time has been going on, the numbers have increased with that. So the one-on-one therapy is happening in person, but as Lindy said, we have a few families who still prefer the virtual, and that's fine, or might be coming in for some, if they're getting more than one therapy, they may be coming into the clinic for one therapy and then have chosen to do virtual on the other. So we've worked with them to make sure that they feel safe and are comfortable. We put certainly some protocol in place of which our families have worked very well with us. And it's simply, by having a carpool drop off instead of coming into the waiting room so that we can limit the number of people that are within the building. So all of those kind of things have really helped. Because for a lot of our children who are medically fragile, who have some really significant things going on, you don't want them to get COVID. I mean, I don't want anybody to get it, but for some of them, that can be very life-threatening. And so we have gone above and beyond to make sure that our families and the kids we treat, our staff, that everybody has remained as safe as possible.
It's funny you mentioned the parents and the cars and the carpool and getting. I've talked to a lot of summer camps lately. That's a big thing. People are, and a lot of different businesses and a lot of summer camps are all saying, we're going to keep that policy. Parents are staying in the car, send the child in. We're going to, pandemic, no pandemic. That's de facto standard at this point. It just works better, that way. So
it does. Now, summer, we're looking to do our Capable Arts Camp. So we are going to have that. I believe it's June 22nd, the week of June 22nd, that we'll be sending out the enrollment forms. And that's open to any child with a disability, and then also their brothers and sisters. So we try to bring all kids together that are 6 and up, and that they participate. It's a week-long camp, and we bring in some of the community artists. They will come, and we have a creative movement, because boys don't like the term dance class in there. But creative movement. We have music. We also have pottery, multimedia, and then we'll also do some painting. So there'll be like 5 different artists that will then come up with different themes. Well, we have one theme, and they come up with the art activities to go with that. And then at the end, we have a wonderful program where all the art is put on display, and then there's a performance that they do, for their families and for the community, whoever comes out for it. So that's a lot of fun. Last year we did do that virtually, which was fun. It was a little different. It was a challenge, but we got it. And then this year we will probably do maybe not 60 kids, because that's usually our capacity. We may stay at 40 just to have fewer kids to a group. But we will be looking at that. We also do educational program in the summer. We do one-on-one educational therapy throughout the year, but usually during the summer, we try to do maybe two kids in a group, or individual, just depending on what they need. But we have what's called Summer Steps. So we'll bring that back this summer as well.
That's everybody's talking. It's all coming back. It's things are unfolding. Yeah. It's interesting. It's exciting to see that it's happening. But, like I said, just a month ago, you didn't even think that.
Yeah. No, and I think we're going to be able to do our No Such Thing as Impossible bike event too. We have an adapted bike program for the children, and we're able to raise money and get bikes into the hands of a lot of the kids. Because the adapted bike, it's a lot of times it's 3 wheels. It's adapted for them, built for them, and the bikes can run anywhere from $3,000 all the way up to $6,000, and that's with a discount that we get from the company. So they're pretty expensive. But I tell you, when you watch those kids on those bikes, just riding and just having the best time, it's wonderful. It's just, like you say, it's a rite of passage. Every child should be able to ride a bike in some way, shape, or form. And there's different ways to be accessible with it, whether it's the brakes, where the parent can run behind and hold with a steering in the back, so the child is still able to participate, but the parent is also helping the guide, or the brother or sister, to hold off and squeeze the brake, and help them go if they need to, all the way to a much more independent, where the child doesn't need the help, but just needs the balance that's there for them. And so we do a bike event with that raises money, which is going to come up on May 16th over at Point Marie. And that's just wonderful.
It's just nice to get, the whole mission of the center in general is sort of like a holistic approach to how the therapy is done, so that kids, regardless of their diagnosis, regardless of their financial status, they can have the access to be kids, right? Yeah. So what does occupational therapy look for a child whose occupation is to be a child? So, what does that look like? And most of all of our programming kind of ties into that. The Capable Play, which I was really bummed I didn't get to see in person. I saw it on virtual, but I went to summer camp with my siblings. Capable Arts,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Because we have a Capable Play also.
I went to summer camp with my siblings, and a lot of summer camps that gear towards kids with physical or developmental disabilities, they're separate from kids who are probably neurotypical or don't have any other diagnoses. So this is a really special summer camp where our clients or anyone can experience summer camp with their siblings, which is what summer camp is for a lot of people, experiencing it with their siblings. And, the bike program, you're teaching your kids to bike with their siblings. And so this way, a child who has a diagnosis that maybe they can't use your standard bike that you can get from, Walmart or Capital, City or wherever, they can still be a part of the family in these very basic childhood rites of passage, summer camp, riding a bike. We do
Exactly. We did the bikes this summer with, I've got a 12-year-old daughter and 8-year-old twin boys. And it was amazing. I'm listening to you tell me about the bike. You could be behind. I was having to run, from just down the sidewalk and then back, and about killed me. But I think
Yeah.
what the middle picture that's coming is that you said, kind of the rite of passage, that they've got to be able to do it. And I think, and I don't know this is just talking off the top of my head, but I can imagine, if you're that sibling who, maybe can't necessarily do it, the typical, or what we think is typical, the right way, that maybe that gets them a little upset, and they're kind of down and out, or they're left off to the side while these other things, that are happening. And that can spiral, right? Like if it's one thing, well, I couldn't do the bikes, everybody's riding a bike but me, or nobody taught me how to ride. That seems like it's bad, but it's like, it's like, okay, well, it's a bike, but that compounds into, well, it's just one more thing, that I'm not able to necessarily maybe do, that can change someone's complete mindset and outlook on things.
Well, in the slip of the tongue, we have a program called Capable Play, and the program is it's a 6 week long program where for kids who have more severe multiple diagnoses. So like these are the kids who maybe 5 or 6 years ago, no one knew how to engage them because maybe they don't talk, maybe they don't have the ability to move parts of their bodies in some ways. So this is a program that uses really simple technology to adapt things around the house so that these kids who would otherwise not be able to participate can participate. And that's not just in a family game night, but also, I have 2 kids. I have a 4.5-year-old. He has chores, right? And every kid should have chores and have responsibilities. So through the Capable Play program, we can adapt a water pick with an adaptable button so that the child maybe they can just turn their head. And so there's a switch up here, or maybe they can just move their feet. And so there's a switch by their feet. And all of a sudden they can turn on the water pick, and now they can water the plants around the house. And now they have a responsibility. So, because what you were saying is, it's not just being, it's not just the capability of doing something that can get you down. It's if someone doesn't think you can. And so it's your mental health too. It's not just the physical health that's part of the reason why I wanted to work here. It's not just the physical health that the therapy and programming addresses. It's the mental health of a child. How much better do you feel about yourself that you can participate in a family game night that you otherwise would not have been able to participate in?
Right. Well,
No,
with technology now, whereas before we could only go to a certain level with kids. And so a lot of times they got stuck with where they were. Now with technology, there are so many different kinds of switches that if a child's strength is that they can use their puff switch, we have puff switches. If they can nod their head, we have a switch that can do that. They can use their foot, they can use their hand. There's so many different kinds that now we can take children as far as they can go, to where we reach their potential instead of having to stop because there wasn't anything left to be able to bring them to that independence.
It's funny you mentioned, I used to say, that my brother, he's since passed, unfortunately, but beforehand, one of the biggest things that I looked at that was more of a problem, it was bigger than the problem. He had some disabilities, but the problem was, that I used to say, is that he knew he had the disability, and that to me was what was worse almost. It was, it's like, he knew just enough to know, kind of where things were a little bit different. And sometimes, depending on the people that he hung out with or who he was around at the time, over like where he spent his time and the people he spent his time around, it would turn into either he knew that he had that disability and it was a problem, or it was like challenge accepted. You know what I mean? Kind of, like one or the other, and it all depends. And I bring that up just to go all the way back to where we were talking in the beginning, that some of these kids, that therapist that's helping them, is a big role to where, that if you pulled them out of that environment to where maybe now they're not in the challenge accepted and I'm going to find a way to do this, it's more the defeated, the body posture changes, those types of things.
Kids are very, kids can go with the flow very easily. You give a kid a challenge, most kids are gonna, are up to it. And so it's up to us as, the responsible people in the room, as the adults, as the parents, as the caregivers, to make sure that they are given the chance to not just be challenged, but to give them the tools they need to succeed, to do that, and not to just say, oh, well, because of your diagnosis, you can't do this. No, it's our responsibility as society, as McMains, as parents and caregivers, to say, okay, because of your diagnosis, this is what the parameters are that we need to help you with. So let's help you with that and see what you can do on your own.
And I'm gonna not necessarily derail us, but and walk me through, or what I'm afraid of is I don't want someone watching, or listening to the, show here and going. I think what we do is when we don't have information in our mind, we fill it with something. And I don't want someone thinking that, well, my child doesn't have a disability that's that bad, so I don't need to make the phone call, or it's, really bad, can they even help? So I just don't want to leave that gap. So if you could just, what is it? Like, if we broke it down and said, what do you see most of the time in there? What are some of those development disabilities? Some of those where I want someone, if they hear it, to go, check, okay, that's for me. I need to put this on the list. I don't want them just to assume.
So at the center, we see children, probably 50% of the kids we see have developmental delays. So that's your children who, as they're growing and they're reaching milestones, they might be a little bit delayed, a little uncoordinated, a little behind on the way they're saying their sounds. They may be struggling with, you look at him and go, oh, he hadn't learned to skip yet. He's having problems with that. We have, like I say, 50%. A lot of times with a little help of therapy, those kids outgrow it and will move forward from that. Then we have a little bit smaller numbers who come through with cerebral palsy. And of course, we know cerebral palsy, as with autism and even learning, it varies on a continuum. There's still some people that are very mild with these things, all the way to people who are very, very severe. And so the center addresses all of that. We have children who may be struggling with how to pronounce the sound of an R when they're saying their R sound in words, to children who do have a feeding tube or have a wheelchair, who are much more severely involved. They can still be very smart kids, though, because physical does not mean that intellectually they're impacted. It just means they also are physically impacted. So each child is we look at them and they're very individual. So then we look for what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and using those strengths to figure out how to address those weaknesses.
And I would say, if a parent's listening to this and they have a question, that's why McMains is here. That's why we have a social worker. So like my child came here for speech articulation. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. And so McMains was there to help me. And he did 6 months of therapy, and we're taking a break because he hit milestones. And now we're going to see if he hits the milestones that he needs to hit. So, if someone's listening, they're saying, well, I don't know. Well, that's why you come to McMains, because it is a holistic approach. The social worker, we can evaluate the child and, we think there's something going on in speech. Well, let's do a speech evaluation. And the speech pathologist might say, I see something happening that the occupational therapist might want to take a look at. Well, we don't have to send that child to another location. We can send that child down the hallway to the occupational therapist to be evaluated. So, or the physical therapist or the educational therapist. So, if someone's out there saying, I think something needs to be addressed, that's all you have to think. There's no, I need it to be this bad to come to McMains.
And we are very much a referral source. We have families who call and they say, my child's struggling with reading and I don't know what's wrong, but I think there's something that's off. And that's where our social work department, our patient care coordinator, and our social worker are able to talk to the parent and help them connect to what we offer here at the center, but also what's in the community. Because there may be something, especially through the school system, where you can say, talk to your teacher, because the school system does have testing as well. They can also do 504 accommodations. They can do, whatever is needed for that child to succeed. We're also able to help.
I actually described, I haven't told this to Ann yet, but I actually described McMains as, in Miracle 34th Street, how Macy's sends people to Gimbals and other places if they don't have the toy, because they just want the kid to get the toy for Christmas. We do that. Like if we can't help that child here, that doesn't mean that the child is not our responsibility. We will help find that child the resources that they need to succeed, whether it's here or somewhere else within the community. And right now we service over 14 parishes. So
wow.
It's not just Baton Rouge.
Right.
It's a large part of Louisiana that we are servicing.
The inner marketer, in me is not that this is the marketing, campaign, but like I'm hearing you talk about this, and I wanted, it's almost like I can see it in my head where it's like we need parents to, like, if you think, she, needs some help, stop Googling it, just come in. Like, don't do this.
Yes.
This is too many times, we're not talking, diseases and sickness and all that stuff, but too many times it's just probably, I'm sure it's the same way, that people start, it's like, well, what about this? And you start Googling, you're reading something in which you didn't realize you're reading an article that's, 10 years old, or it's written by somebody who doesn't even know what they're talking about. It's like, why? I tell a lot of people this. I'm like, why are you going to spend hours upon hours at night trying to research something that you could probably get an answer in like 20 minutes on a phone call and an hour appointment somewhere? Like, why are you doing this to you?
Yeah.
If I could go read every surgical book, that there is, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, but you are not going to let me do surgery. You're just not going to do it, right?
No.
So why we do this to ourselves? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to research it. I'll figure it out. I'll find something. There's a YouTube video. It's like, no, let's just stop Googling it.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, or if you just think there might be something, make a phone call. And so I think that's what I would say for anybody who's,
No, I agree with you. Absolutely.
So,
And we do work to where it's not just, I encourage strongly that when someone calls, that the social worker, the patient care coordinator who is speaking to that parent, that it's not just, no, we don't do that, to really explore with them and see, because sometimes you only know one part of the question. You really don't know what all you're looking for, but you just know you've got this one thing. You, like I said, seeing the reading or seeing something else that's going on with your child. Maybe when they're writing and they're putting all their paperwork, it's totally disorganized, and they don't organize their math problems, and they're not getting, and how do you figure out what that is?
I literally have it written on a business card that says, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So stop trying to figure it out. We're in this self-diagnosing world that we all want to, figure it out. And, but it's, let the professionals do what they do. And I think you guys do a great job of it. And I don't know what else to say. I think that's,
Thank
you guys have nailed it.
We try. We try.
So, well, look, I tell everybody there's always more important things to do than to sit here and talk to me, but I appreciate y'all taking some time out of the day to come fill us in and, answer some questions. And, hopefully we can have you back and tell us more what's going on when some of these events, come together. Let me know. We'll have you back on. We'll talk about it. We'll make it a little bit easier, raise some money, hopefully, find some ways, reach some people that are, wanting to help, because I think it's been hard for the nonprofits, but I think we're going to come back. And I think what people are going to, if anything, because I'm a serial entrepreneur to a fault, as I describe myself, I'm wired to be an optimist. The sun will come out, and people, if anything, with nonprofit organizations, they're going to realize how much they've actually done for us in the community when they never realized it before. And I think as the sun comes back out, we'll start seeing more people that are willing to go, hey, I really missed that service, or I didn't realize. I think mental health was very underplayed, and now people are really starting to understand it, and the things that you guys are doing to where it's not just, oh, they'll get it. It's like, no,
Yeah.
don't just say they'll get it or they'll grow out of it or don't keep Googling it. Make a simple phone call, go to the website, get your information, fill it out. Super easy. We'll put some links in the show notes for everybody, phone numbers. So
Sounds good.
well, I appreciate you guys sticking around.
Thank you very,
Thank
very
you
much.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.